All right. We are getting ready to do the quadratic formula. Okay. So we've already talked about graphing quadratics and finding your x-intercepts. We talked about factoring your quadratics and solving, setting them equal to 0. Guess what? That finds your x-intercepts. The quadratic formula will do that same exact thing. Quadratic formula is used for those equations that are not factorable. So the ones where you did on the graph and you got answers like negative 1.77 and 2.45. Okay. That's what the quadratic formula will find. They will find the ones that are not perfect. Okay. So the quadratic formula has a piece of it that's called the discriminant. Okay, so your quadratic formula is actually x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Wow.
Yes, plus or minus. Okay. This song, I'm sorry, this formula, we're going to sing it.
Oh, we are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can sing.
Because guess what? You're going to have to do an oral quiz in the hallway with me and recite the So,
get your minds out the gutter, bro.
okay.
Hey, man, that's what the doctors be asking me.
You went a little too far.
Right.
They be like,
Okay. Refocus. Come on. Okay, so we will sing this tomorrow. All right, once.
Yeah.
One.
No.
I need you to repeat after
I'm
me.
gonna sing it in
Okay.
You know the song like
Yeah.
Yes.
something similar to that. Okay. Negative b
Negative b
plus or minus the square root
plus or minus the square root.
b squared minus 4ac
B squared minus 4ac
over 2a
over 2a. Yay!
So tomorrow we'll actually get on YouTube for a little bit. They have this song to like Britney Spears.
That sounds like
and like we'll find some other ones. Pop Goes the Weasel.
We can
Okay.
do one to Michael Jackson.
I don't care how you memorize it. You have to memorize the formula. You do not get a formula sheet for your final.
I wish we did.
So you will not be given this. Okay.
So you have to sing it, right?
When you recite it to me, no.
Okay.
But some
I'm gonna
people,
sing
it's easier to memorize it through song. I literally had kids last semester that sang it to me because that was the only way they could remember it.
I'm gonna sing it to
Single
you.
set test going.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before I can use the quadratic formula, your equation must be equal to 0. So if it's not, you're going to have to make that happen.
This pen is trash.
Why are things trash today?
Switching it up, boy.
Let me make sure.
I know.
Miss Smith,
Okay.
I'm going to get you.
You're going to get another color? Okay. So your discriminant is just a part of your quadratic formula. It's the number that will end up underneath your square root. So your discriminant is just this piece of your quadratic formula. That did not show up very well. Let me get a different color here. Okay, so your discriminant is just this piece right here. Okay, so your discriminant is b squared minus 4 times a times c. Yes.
Does like B and A's the same for like the same thing as slip and insert?
No.
That's different.
So hold up 1 second. I'm going to show you. Okay. So Bobo just said, Well, what the heck is BAC, huh? What? Okay, so when you solve your quadratic formula for 0, you end up with AX squared the number in front of x squared is your A value. The number in front of your x is your B value. The number that's all by itself is your C value. What if my x term is non-existent? It's 0. If I don't have an x, my B is a 0. What if I don't have a number added at the end? It's 0. What if I don't have an x squared?
One.
Nothing.
This doesn't work.
Oh.
It has to be a quadratic. You must have an x squared.
Why you should
Trick question. Wow.
Got you.
Got you. Okay. So, if when you plug this in, you get a number that is less than 0, that means you have no real roots. So if you end up with a number that's less than 0, we have no real roots. If we equal 0, we have 1 real root. And if I'm greater than 0, we have 2 real roots. So in other words, your discriminant will tell me how many times your graph crosses the x-axis. If you end up with a number that's less than 0, it never crosses. If you end up with a number that equals 0, that's when your vertex comes down and touches the x and bounces back up or bounces back down, depending on which way it's facing. And if it's greater than 0, it crosses your x-axis twice. Okay. Think we're ready for some examples?
Okay.
Not really.
As ready as we'll ever be.
Sure.
All right. So before we can do anything, we need to identify first, is my equation equal to 0?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So now that it's equal to 0, what is A? 6. What is B? It is a 1. And what is your C? Negative 15. It's minus 15, so you must carry that negative. Okay, so we are now going to plug this into your discriminant, which we said was b squared minus 4ac. Remember, when you plug numbers in, you put it in parentheses. So my b value is a 1. So 1 squared. Minus 4. My a value is a 6. My c value is a negative 15. Plug this into your calculator. Exactly how you see it. In parentheses and all.
Brianna said hi.
I'm going to tell you this one more time. This is a math class. Get your calculator when you walk in the door, please. Because we are now wasting time waiting for you to get a calculator.
10.
Okay. You get 361.
If I submitted something on the side, like outside of it's not inside.
So wait,
There's no parentheses around the 4. That's part of your equation.
So I got a question.
Oh, that's like all.
Yeah, that's always there. You only put parentheses as you're subbing numbers in. Yes.
So you said it's plus or minus b squared. So,
Don't worry about the plus or minus right now. We're not even dealing with that. All we're dealing with is this.
Put it in y equals.
No.
We solved the problem.
I need the answer. What's 1 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 15? 361. Okay. This answer is what?
Your
One row answer.
Greater than 0. So this means we have 2 real roots.
You drop. You have a long, ridiculous
You would technically do negative 4 and 6.
This is too small.
you just did me.
This is one page.
Okay, so I don't want to deal with what the solutions are right now. Just know that this crosses the x-axis 2 times. Okay, we'll worry about actually getting those solutions tomorrow when we actually get into the quadratic formula. All I want to know, all I want you to be able to do is look at an equation today, use your discriminant, and tell me it crosses twice, it crosses once, or it never crosses. That's all I want you to concentrate on today. Yes.
So if you were to input that into the calculator, it would basically be the x and the
The whole quadratic formula, yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes.
It crosses the x-axis 2 times because it has 2 real roots.
Okay, so your graph is going to look something like this. Okay, where it crosses here and it crosses here. Okay.
Really? So can you teach us how we're gonna get that? That was on lost. I'm gonna be honest.
Because you have 2 real roots, so it crosses the x-axis
How do
2
we know what
times.
two roots are?
I told you we're not focusing on that today.
Oh,
If you would listen
I'm sorry.
when I speak.
I'm sorry. I heard
All I want to know is, do you know how many times it crosses it today? That's it. That's all we're doing. Okay, top left. Again, the first thing you need to do, is my equation equal to 0? Yes. What is my A value? What is my B value? What is my C value? 25. Okay. Again, we plug it into my discriminant, which is B squared minus 4AC. So I plug in 10 for B and square it. Minus 4. I plug in 1 for A. And I plug in 25 for C. I need you to get me a value of what this means, so I can determine how many times my graph crosses the X.
Do you know the thing?
Got what? 0. So I got an answer of 0, which means I have 1 real root. Which means it crosses the x-axis once. No, you would just put discriminant equals 0. Crosses the x-axis once. So your graph will look something like this, where your vertex is what touches the x-axis. Yeah, I think these all have minimums because all your x squares are positives.
But it could be negative, right?
It could be negative. Okay, your graph could also look like this.
My only one that caught it.
This the other.
Today you said we have to do the D word thing. That's discriminate.
That's all we're focusing on today.
So which one is it?
What do you mean, which one is it?
It's,
Either one of those graphs means you have one real root. Either way. It doesn't matter whether it's facing up or facing down. If it only touches the x once, you have one real root. Okay? Okay, last one. Is it equal to 0?
Give me that one.
Yes, it's equal to 0. My equation's equal to 0. So A is what? 1. B is
2.
And C is?
5.
Okay, again, we plug this into B squared minus 4AC. So this time I square the 2. Negative 4 times 1. And then times 5. You said what?
Negative 16.
Negative 16 or 60?
16.
16. Negative 16. Now we got a number that's less than 0, which means we have no real roots. Which means it never crosses the x-axis.
I got a question.
Yes.
What if the result equals 1? Then it will be 1 row root?
No. 1 is greater than 0, so it would be 2 real roots.
Okay.
Anything that's positive is 2 real roots. Anything that's negative is no real roots, and 0 is 1.
Okay.
Okay?
So that's the only one that would be 1 row root?
Yes, ma'am. So your graph for this one would either look something like this, where it's above the x-axis, or it could look something like this, where it's below the x-axis. Okay, but it never touches it. Okay, because this bottom one's going to keep going down, and that top one's going to keep going up. It'll never go down to touch that x-axis. Okay, so what I want you to do now is you're going to take each one of these corners and you're going to fold it into the middle. So we're going to make a diamond. Hold on, I'll back it out so you can see it a little bit better. So you're just taking each one of these corners and folding it into the middle. I like to be difficult, that's why.
It's creative and beautiful and you love it.
Creative and beautiful and you love it.
I love it.
I ain't saying you can hear what I'm thinking.
Kelly, you wore some with that little laugh that you did.
Yeah.
Does it matter what side we put it on? We put that on?
Yes.
Does it matter?
Okay, so underneath that first flap is where I introduced the discriminant. So on the outside, I wrote what your discriminant was. In the bottom corner, bottom left corner is where we did the example where I ended up with a solution that was greater than 0. In the top left, my discriminant equaled 0. And in the bottom right, my discriminant was less than 0. Once you are finished, you can glue this in on page 84. Dun, dun, dun. Wait, just make sure, just like that. Keep it just like that.
Which one is that one? Or that one?
Listen, if you open it up, you should be able to read it.
Oh, okay.
Okay? If you open it up, you should be able to read it. 84. 83 should have been your title page.
So glue it in sideways. Or
Just like that. Diamond. Perfect. 84.
Y'all got killing this good. Man, I tried to stop that, it never works.
People just
What page you on this?
84,
oh my god. Yo, I was
But listen, man, Bobo.
Oh,
Allie would help me.
You're gonna be a school teacher.
Definitely not.
Yo, what am I? Yo, you be quiet. I was talking about.
Okay, once you glue that in, I want you to take these 3 pieces and fold them along that long dotted line so they all look like this.
Bobo, don't say nothing.
The dotted line underneath the words. Fold it along that dotted line, please. Just peachy. Just peachy. We got a game against West tonight?
You think I'm gonna
Is
win?
it home?
No.
You think I'm gonna win?
It depends on how the girls come out. I feel like sometimes when we say who we're playing, they automatically just feel like they can't beat them.
I promise you, it's like that because when every time we face North, we're like, oh no, we're just gonna take this L.
And then, right, and then they don't even try, and then we get mercy
Right.
rolled. They don't realize though, we can compete.
Period.
Patriotic tank.
Wes can have a bad day, and we could actually win. It happens. You always should go out and try. And then I feel like sometimes we'll, like, you say one team, and we're just like, oh, we got this. And then we get stomped because we go out cocky.
That happened a lot in volleyball.
Yes. Woo.
That never happened in
Okay.
tennis. We're just
We
trying.
got this.
Once you do this,
I would have not admitted that.
once you do this, I want you to fold.
When y'all miss it, don't ask her again, bro.
Not good. Next year.
On both sides?
Because I'm
Yes.
gonna cuss you out.
Both sides so they're like this.
Inside or outside?
Fold them under.
I've been playing a lot. Well, it got cold.
Hold on.
You shouldn't even show them.
I'm gonna ask it.
Oh,
It's okay.
Nobody will
Oh, so it's like a pocket.
I'm gonna drink it high.
Now, so it's going.
It's like a pocket.
Parlay.
I got a what?
So it's going.
Hey.
Oh.
But.
This is.
You
This
do.
is.
You got the
She
job.
need to hit.
Yeah.
Apparently.
No. She not.
Y'all gonna hardly miss
You don't need to
it.
do
Her
It's cold.
Huh?
Too messed up.
She said, huh?
You can only.
I can say. You don't like that. I can't really look on
Yes, you can, Kelly. Molly, are you done with the? I haven't even started that
Girl, let's
project.
do tomorrow.
No,
You don't speak one.
it's so sad. I do that to her class all the time.
You said for psychology?
It's easy though, so I mean, I'm gonna get it
It's
done.
like a 5-minute project.
No,
No?
it's about the different type of well, like music.
Right, what money?
You basically write
Right.
down
Okay. The last thing I need you to do is once you have them all folded, they need to be glued somewhere on page 85. I don't care what order you glue them in. I don't care if you glue them all in a straight line. Whatever your little heart desires.
Little.
Yes.
Too big.
They got a little what?
I'm gonna start being mean.
They get a little.
Wait, so how do we? You want us to glue the flaps down,
You just fold them.
or glue these down?
It doesn't matter. You can put glue across the whole thing. It doesn't matter. Okay. Once you put glue on it, you're going to want to shut your notebook. Okay.
Probably so big.
It's going to take a minute for the glue to dry. Okay. If for some reason your glue does not work, you can tape it down. Okay. I know sometimes because some of these things are a little bit thick, it doesn't always
Do we
work.
need to leave space?
Nope.